Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be setting up my new Mathews Phase4. I got the Mathews bow. This is the Mathews Phase4 33. Received it a couple of weeks ago and just haven't had a chance to get it set up. But I thought I would take the opportunity today, and while I'm doing it, rather than doing a complete setup video, I want to talk about some of the components and really how Mathews has started integrating the components within the bow itself, so that the bow actually becomes a platform for the entire system. And so we'll kind of talk about that as we go through and as we go through the setup. So this is a Mathews Phase4 33-inch. It's very similar to the Mathews V3X that I have in the background over there. That's the 29-inch, and I decided on this one to go with the 33. One of my favorite bows in recent Mathews lineup has been the Mathews Traverse, and it was a 34-inch axle to axle. After shooting the 31-inch with the V3 and then following that up with the 29-inch V3X, I decided that I wanted to go back to a little bit longer bow, see if I can get a little bit more consistency in my shooting. So really, for the most part, the riser, the cam system, the modules, everything else is very similar to the previous version of the bow, the Mathews V3X. Other than the Bridgelock stabilizer, which we'll talk more about in just a moment, it's almost identical riser style to the V3X. So one of the main technical changes that Mathews made with the actual bow is the limbs. And so they advertised the 8 parallel limb design of the Phase4. And so as you can see, there's actually, these are separate limbs, each of these 4 on each side, top and bottom, and then they're separated by a sound dampening piece of rubber in there. At this point, I won't go too much deeper into that. I haven't actually shot this bow yet, so I can't speak to whether it's going to make a significant difference in vibration or noise or anything like that. I will come back at a later date and hopefully do a review video after I've had a chance to shoot it and let you know kind of what my thoughts on that limb system is. And otherwise, same cam design. The cross-centric cam system still uses a switch weight module system, which I had a video previously about that. All right, so let's get started with the setup. I'm gonna go ahead. This is my little bicycle rack that I've got modified. You've seen that in the other video when we set Hannah's up last year. It's just a little bicycle holder. I don't have a true bow vise, but this works actually remarkably well for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up, and then we'll talk about some of the components that we're running as we kind of set it up. So one of the first things that Mathews did in integrating the components of the bow is with the introduction of the Ultrarest Integrate. So I think that came out initially with the Vertex line of bows. So most of you are probably already familiar with the Mathews integrated rest system, but essentially what it is they machined a dovetail mount, a little clamp mount system, and then in conjunction with QAD developed the Ultrarest integrated arrow rest. And what that did is it allowed for mounting of the rest directly onto the riser of the bow rather than sticking out and mounting into the burger button with traditional rest mounts. And so that allowed them to shave some weight off of it, and then also allowed for more of an integrated, sleeker design, got the weight more towards off the side of the bow and more towards the actual center of the bow itself. There's actually a dual clamp system. One is this outer cover that kind of protects the inner parts of it. After we've got the outer clamp removed, then we can just take this inner clamp. There's a smaller Allen wrench, and we'll loosen that up. There's a little notch that's in the side of the riser, and we'll just kind of line that up with the arrow that's on that clamp. And once we got that in place, then we can come back and put this outer clamp on here. And that's what will snug it up there even better. So again, it's a dual clamp type system. And right this point, we're not going to snug it up too much. We'll come back and tighten everything down once we get everything adjusted to where we want it. We still want to be able to use the micro adjustments for the elevation and the windage on that. I'm going to hold off right now on putting the timing cable in until after we get everything set up. With that initial setup of the IMX integrated rest, now we can get our knock point set, and this is a good time to talk about the arrows that I'm going to be running. So these are the Easton Axis long range arrows. This is a 250 spine, and I had my buddy Jeff Scott over at Cinnamon Creek Ranch put these together for me. These are the arrows I've been running for the last couple of years. Gave him kind of the parameters that I wanted to set up, and we'll talk a little bit more about arrow selection in a different video. It's kind of beyond the scope of this, but I told Jeff kind of what I was looking for. He did some calculations on it and came up with the components that we discussed and kind of the front and center that I had hoped for, and then he built these arrows for me. So again, appreciate Jeff over at Cinnamon Creek Ranch for that. Okay, so we want that pretty much running directly straight through that burger hole right there, and that's pretty close. All right, so one of the other things that I kind of want to talk about in this video is the ability to set up and tune your bow yourself and in your house. So when you purchase a new bow, of course, I would always recommend that you purchase it from your local archery shop, get in good with them, and then get them to help you set it up. But I also think it's good practice to know how to set up your own bow and to do your own tuning to some degree. And so just in case you have to make any emergency repairs in the field, or in case you don't live close to an archery shop, or if they're closed and you need to make some repairs or adjustments to it, at least have the ability to do it. But at the same time, of course, you want to have a good relationship with your archery shop. So locally here, if you've seen videos of mine in the past, I typically take it over to Brush to Bay Outfitters, and Tim helps me with a setup, or at least lets me use some of their equipment. But again, I would encourage everybody to learn to set up your own bow. So along the same lines, I encourage you to have some basic arrow building supplies. Here we have some string here and serving material we're going to use to tie it in. Tim over at Brush to Bay actually gave me some D-loop material. I wanted to go with a fluorescent orange material, so I've got some that I had purchased from Amazon, but this is a little bit more of a bright fluorescent orange. So I'm going to tie my knock point in with some serving material above and below that knock point. Leave just a little bit of room in there. All right, so we got our integrated rest installed, and we've got our knocking point set and our D-loop installed. And so now let's talk about the sight that I'm going to run this year. Previously, I've run a Spot Hogg Hogg-It sight. I've had this sight for many years. It's a dovetail mount sight, mounted to previous bows with a bracket, and then it just slides in so you can adjust it. A couple of years ago, I ran a single pin Mathews Hogg Father, and I actually liked it, loved shooting it. I could extend my ranges out, but when it came time to go on my elk hunt, I decided that a single pin was probably a little too risky, and so went back to the standard 5-pin setup. But this year I wanted to try something different, and so again I called up my buddy Jeff over at Cinnamon Creek Ranch, talked to him about this Fast Steady hybrid sight, and this is the triple stack sight. I'll do another video on it, kind of reviewing it after I get it set up and everything. But anyway, so this is what I'm going to run this year. It does have the dovetail mount, which of course integrates with the Bridgelock system that Mathews introduced last year. So most of you are probably familiar with that. On the V3X, they machined a dovetail mount that they call the Bridgelock, that accepts dovetail mounted sights. Any dovetail mount will essentially slide right in there. And so that's what I'm going to do this year, is I'm going to go ahead and run this. We've got the rest, and then we've got our sight, and both of those have been integrated into the riser. So again, we're creating a better balance rather than having the components on the outside of the riser. It's consolidating it into the center of the riser for better balance, tighter tolerances, and then also just a cleaner look overall with it. We don't have the brackets for the sight and for that rest that are on the outside. And then what that enabled them to do is create a low profile quiver. I really love this low profile quiver. I know it's fairly expensive, but we've got it mounted here, and so we can lock it into place, and it just makes a nice clean look. It's not sticking way out to the side. Again, it's creating everything kind of in that center, creating a better balance, and to me, just a cleaner look overall. And then the other added advantage to it is fitting inside a bow case. So with typical quivers that are going to stick out farther, even in a hard-sided case, you lay your bow down in the bow case and close the lid, and it just not enough clearance for bow to be in there with a quiver. I can set this in my bow case with a sight on it, with a quiver on it. Everything's still attached to it, and it just helps keep it better protected overall. I don't have my arrows loose inside the case. I don't have them outside the case, which is what I've done a lot of times, and at the risk of forgetting them or not loading them up in the truck. All right, so last year, Mathews came out with the Bridgelock sight system that's integrated the dovetail mount into the riser itself. And then this year, they added another Bridgelock component, and that is with both front and back stabilizers. I've never run a rear stabilizer, but I do have the Mathews 10-inch stabilizer. Similar to the Bridgelock sight system, there's now a mount, if you will, that's machined into the riser of the bow that will accommodate the stabilizer. And what that allows you to do, you lock it in, you slide it in right there, and then you can run a long stabilizer. You can adjust it to shorten it, so you can run whatever length of stabilizer that you want. Again, it's manufactured and engineered for tight tolerances. You can add additional weight modules to the front of it as well as to the rear stabilizers. Locks into place with a thumb screw locking mechanism. Once it's in there, it's tight. There's no rattle, very tight tolerance. And then if you want to fit it into a bow case or reduce the size of it, you just unscrew back off that locking nut, slide it in, lock it back down, and now you can fit it into your bow case with all the accessories attached. But let's talk about some of the other accessories and components that Mathews has available to just complete the system here. And I'm going to use this bow as an example. The Silent Connect system just mounts to the limb pocket bracket here on either side, and you can kind of see how that goes in there. And then it comes with a bow rope, which you can use paracord, whatever else, and create your own, but it does come with one. So it has a loop in there that you can tighten or loosen, and then just slip that around the edge and climb up in the tree. Sorry about the rooster. And then just haul it up in the tree. Now, the other thing that I've recently added is a sling. So I've got actually a Sitka Gear bow sling that covers the cams. I use it quite a bit when I'm traveling. If I don't want to put the bow in the case or whatever, so it protects the strings, it protects the cams, it's got a complete cover. But if I'm just walking to a tree stand location, from a truck to a tree stand, most of the time what I'll do is I'll put on, just slide the Silent Connect system sling on here on one end, quickly pop it on the other end, and then I've got a sling that I can carry the bow to and from the stand. I've got my hands free for, especially with video type stuff. Got my backpack, everything. My hands are free to carry the other accessories that I have. It's just another one of those nice additions that adds to the complete system. So along those lines, you may have seen this. This is the engaged limb legs that slide onto the bow. I really, really like this. The limb legs slide into the limb pocket, lock on just like this. Your bow sits on the ground. There's a tight fit. Your cams don't sit in the dirt. Typically, I'll shoot with those legs on. When I was elk hunting, I actually just left these on most of the time. A lot of times when I'm deer hunting in a tree stand or in a ground blind, I'll just leave them on and shoot. And again, they quickly and fairly quietly pop on and off. All right, so there's another bow accessory and an integrated feature that Mathews has added to their lineup, and I think it's a little bit of an underrated accessory, and that is the Stay Afield system. So the Stay Afield system is a pretty simple little concept that allows you to work on your strings and your cables in the field, but to me, just as importantly, is it allows you to set up your bow and do some initial tuning, which is what we're going to do right here, without the use of a bow press. So we're going to install our peep sight here is one of the last things that we have to do. We're going to put our timing cable from our rest on our down bus cable. So we're going to be able to do that without the use of a bow press. So one of the things that Mathews added last year with the V3X and continued on the Phase 4 is they machined a couple of tabs on both of the cams. And so what that allows you to do is using this little nifty device right here, which is the Stay Afield system. First thing we did is we backed off our limbs to reduce the draw weight on it. And then I'm going to attach one of the loops to the top cam, and then very carefully draw the string until that cam rolls into place and we fit over that other tab. Now we can work on our string or install our peep, which is what we're going to do now. Okay, so we got our peep sight. We can separate our string. Install our peep. So now we're going to make sure our string's in the right place and very carefully remove the stay afield system and roll our string back into place. So now our peep is installed and we didn't have to have a bow press to do it. So similarly, we can work on our cables, and we're going to do just that. All right, so we can loosen up our down cable on our bow and install our timing cable for our rest, and then we're all set. All right, so to do that, we're going to leave the top cam. We want to work on our down cable, so we're going to leave the top loop in the tab that's closest to the string on the top cam, and then we're going to press our down cable to roll that bottom cam forward until we can loop into the one that's closest to the riser. So there's a tab closest to the string, tab closest to the riser, and so now we've got a loose down cable. So again, we can separate our string, and we're just going to pull our timing cable from our rest through there and just leave it loose. Okay, and then we can depress our cable again, remove our stay afield system, and tighten that cable back up. I keep this rolled up and in my camera bag most of the time. If I don't have my camera bag, I put it in either my binocular harness, always have it on me in the field. That way I can do any minor repairs to string or cable. So I highly recommend this little accessory right here. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video right here. I'm not going to bore you with tying in the peep and the other things and tuning the bow, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the components that I'm running, talk about some of the accessories and the components that Mathews is offering, and discuss how bow manufacturers in general, but Mathews in particular, are really engineering the components into the bow itself. So again, the bow has become a platform for the entire system of accessories and components. So I'd love to hear your feedback on any of that. Leave the comment down in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate you joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.